Rock, Yahweh, Allah, Shalom, planet Earth. Welcome back to TRU-TALK. I hope all is well. I want to speak on a controversial topic, and I'm not going to dig deep in it and hit it at every angle like I would like to. That would be a long video, but I do want to bring a couple points up about this, and we're going to call this Examine Our Forefather Polygamous. However you said, I can't pronounce it right, so we're just going to say examine our forefathers or the patriarchs, multiple wives. We're going to examine and when you look at that, because the scriptures for our example. And sometimes I think we can look at it with a narrow, look at it through a narrow lens, where we just look at it one way, still looking at the whole thing and really getting a full understanding how it came about. How did our ancestors receive multiple wives? Because when you look at it, it was in a humble way. And it was majority of the time their wives' idea, not their own idea. Because nowadays, brother, they will, first of all, let me say I'm not against a man having multiple wives. The Most High is not against it. I'm not against it. I do believe that he didn't meant for every man to have multiple wives. And I'm gonna speak about that today also, why I feel that way. But what I don't like is when men try to demonize women that don't want to be a part of that lifestyle, that don't want to be a sister wife. They don't want to share their husband. And men will try to demonize women that feel like that and try to say that they not of the Most High and they gonna go to hell and that they speaking against the Most High and they not really righteous and like that, try to make like that they ain't submitted to the Most High and the faith and they wicked and evil for that. And that's not the case. Scripture never commanded that men should have multiple wives. If I'm not mistaken, it says if a man get another wife. It didn't say when or you had to, but in the scripture when it was talking about, you know, if a man get a second wife and she have kids and, you know, even if he don't like the first wife, still the first son should get, the firstborn right. But notice he said if, he didn't say when or should or it was commanded. So no, our sisters is not commanded or demanded to be a part of this. A marriage is an agreement, it's a covenant. And if your wife or wives agree with it, so be it. May y'all family be blessed. But if your wife is not on the same accord, because marriage is a partnership, it's agreement, it's it's the two should become one. It's not just about you, not just about you and your feelings. It's about her and your feelings and you being the head, as men's being the head. That's our concern. Our concern is not just our pleasure or what we want. It's about having a happy and peace household. And we being the head, the overseer, we supposed to make sure that's possible for our wives and our kids. And if our wife is not happy and miserable because you uh disregarded her feelings about having a second wife, or you force her to be a sister wife or into a predicament that she's not happy with or shouldn't be with, then that shows your bad leadership. That's on you. You can't demonize her and say, oh, she's not getting with the program. No, you was never called. You cannot call her to get down with a program that she's not comfortable with. You as a husband gotta know how to be a righteous leader and don't force your wife into doing something that she don't want to and just say she's not down with it. That's just up to her. And that's something that, you know, should be understood at the get-go. That if you're gonna get a wife, that you should talk that through her. And if that's something that you really want, and it's the most high ordainment, then you come to your wife the right way. She might not want it at first, but she may give in. You know what I'm saying? There's a way to do everything. What I'm trying to say, you can't just force it on your wife. If she don't want to do it, you can't just force it on your wife, because you as a leader would not be doing a leader job. You would not be leading as a man the right way. And you'll be causing chaos in your marriage and life based on just what you want and your feeling. And as a leader, as a man, we think about the whole household. You don't just think about ourselves. When we go to work, we don't think about, when I get this paycheck, what I'm going to do. We think about, when I get this paycheck, how I'm going to pay the bills for the family, how I'm going to make sure my children straight, how I'm going to make sure my wife straight, how I'm going to make sure they eat, they got clothes, they got things they need. Not only the things they need, uh, I want to be able to get them the things they want also. So that's being a real leader. That's really being a man and being concerned about your wife's feelings and having peace in your household. And that's up to you. And if your household ain't got peace in it, you being the head, that's your fault, man. Then something wrong on your end. And you got to figure it out. And usually it's not being submissive to Mashiach, to your head, to uh, if you obedient to my Mashiach, Mashiach head is the Father. You obedient to the Father, and He'll show you what you're doing wrong, what you need to do right. But yeah, I definitely do not agree with forcing a woman into being a sister wife or into this lifestyle if she not happy with it and don't agree with it. And, and men try to demonize women and say they're not of the faith because they don't want to participate or like it. And you in error. That's just a lie. You wrong. Uh, and also, a lot of men, we just be honest, they do it out of lust. They do it because they say, wow, I can have how many women? And they mind go into that mode instead of thinking about, okay, how can I care for these women? When these women's on their monthly, how I'm gonna behave, you know, all that and how I'm gonna provide for these women. Usually they think about sex, having multiple partners to have sex with. And it starts right there in the end right there. They say, oh, I can have multiple sex with multiple women, and the Most High won't be mad at me. And they don't look no farther than that. So a lot of it is driven by lust, and that's a big error. It's not gonna work. You're not gonna be happy. It's not gonna be happy if it's not driven by the right motives. If you're not in the right mindset, because having multiple women is not gonna stop you from lusting after women. For those that was, when you was out there and you was the time when we was being dogs and whores and homongers and sleeping around. It didn't matter how many women we slept with. We always was trying to sleep with more. So it don't matter if you got that spirit in you. It don't matter if you got 2 or 3 or 4 wives at home. If you just a lustful, ungodly man, then you still gonna be trying to sleep with other women, even though you got a wife at home. Just like David. David had how many wives and concubines? But he still took a man that had one wife. He still went out of his way to sleep with Bathsheba, a woman that had a husband. He could have went to any one of his, 300, 200 wives, but instead he go for a woman just because she was beautiful, as if like he didn't have a beautiful wife. I'm pretty sure his, a lot of his wife was beautiful. So you don't just go after a woman because she's beautiful and she's appealed to you. So and David learned a hard lesson after going after his flesh. So that shows you he had all them wives, but he still stepped out and committed adultery. Just wrap your hand around that. A man that have nearly 400 something wives and concubines commit adultery by not sleeping with any of his 400 wives, but going to sleeping with another man wife. So they'll let you know that it's not about that. If you can't contain that, that thing in your pants, if you ain't got control over that, then it's gonna be messy. It's not gonna work out for you. Uh, you're gonna end up breaking many hearts and putting yourself in a predicament where you mistreat and hurt righteous women and do yourself a disservice because you can't control that uh, little man in your pants. But nevertheless, so just let you know, I don't disagree with a man having multiple wives. I just think it have to be spiritual led. It have to be really, the man himself have to be humble and righteous and in it for the right reason, doing it for the right reason, knowing what he getting into. And he got to be a strong leader. It's one thing to lead, to be a head over one woman, but to be head over 2 or 3 women or even 4 women, you gotta be, what type of leader are you gonna be? You gotta know how to lead. You gotta know how to be uh, sensitive to all 4 of their feelings and their desirements. And a lot of stuff y'all gonna have to work around. I don't. A lot of these dudes that be trying to do this, they ain't got no money. They really ain't banking like that. And I don't look down on brothers that got a 9 to 5 that's trying to make it. That's cool. But a 9 to 5 is a one wife man job. If you ain't banking it like that, what makes you think you supposed to have multiple wives? And then a lot of these dudes, the way they think, they say, well, I get multiple wives, I put my wife to work and they can bring in income and we can, because we stand under one roof and all the women's are working along with me, then we can afford this lifestyle. And I'm not against women working. The scripture's not against women working. But usually when the woman work, she work at her house. It ain't, when she had a husband, mostly time she was working towards being a wife, you know. But nah, I'm not against women uh helping their husband and providing, uh, nor is the structure, but it's our job to provide for the woman, not for the woman to uh provide for the household. And a lot of these dudes, that's what they be really on. I'm gonna let the women get a job and provide for the household, and I just put my money in with them. And that's not the case. Uh, that's bummy. That's and it's gonna lead the women to be stressed because uh, as much as you think that's enough money to go around, it's not. When you got wives that got needs and want, and then you have kids, you know, you may have two of them pregnant at once, or one may get sick. The kids, you got multiple kids and they get sick. Nah, it's just you got to have a lot in the bank. It's enough, cause enough for just one family. People are just struggling with just one wife and children. So just think about having multiple wives and multiple children. So when the scripture, when you think about the men that had multiple wives, Abraham, the Most High blessed him. He was a wealthy man. David, he was a king, a wealthy man. Solomon, a king, a wealthy man. So when they like to name some of our patriarch brothers and forefathers about them having multiple wives, some things we need to look at. Like these men was very wealthy men. So they was able to afford to have multiple wives. And I think that gave them the right to have multiple wives. And even more, I think that made their wives more comfortable and submissive for them having multiple wives. Because they're like, okay, I got a king, or I got a wealthy husband. He gonna take care of me and my kids. I'm not worried about that, you know. And yeah, I probably do with have fun. I don't want to be in this big house by myself, or, you know, have this money. I can have some sister wives, and, you know, we can have a kids and big family, blase, blase, don't know how a woman would think and see about it, but just thinking, that's probably how some women, probably would feel and think about it. But nevertheless, these was wealthy men. Every time you look at it, you know, no way you look at it or cut it, they was wealthy. When brothers are naming the men that had multiple wives, if I'm not mistaken, all of them was very wealthy. So I think if you're not very wealthy, it's like, what you talking about? You out of your lane. You know what I'm saying? Uh, but another thing I like to look at when it comes to this is, like I said, I'm not getting too deep into it and all that, but I just want to look at it for a minute, because a lot of these things brothers skip over and they don't look at it, or they don't bring these type of questions up. And these things must be examined and looked at. So that's what we're doing today. We just examining our forefathers' multiple wives relationships. We just examining, looking at it, and looking at the things that I think some of the brothers maybe not on attention bypass, but they really don't look at or examine as we're doing today. But one of the things is they like to always say, well, if you're against multiple wives, then you're against the patriarch, and you're against our forefathers. And it's like, wait a minute, not every last one of our forefathers had multiple wives. For example, Isaac. Isaac he just kind of creep up on the rug. We talk about Abraham and then we talk about Jacob, but we know Abraham had Isaac and Isaac had Esau and Jacob. But Isaac was also a wealthy man, a blessed man, but he had one wife his whole life, Rebecca. So when we talk about being like our forefathers and the patriarchs, why don't we never look at Isaac as an example? So Isaac was one of our forefathers that had one wife. And the prophet Daniel, if I'm not mistaken, he didn't have no wife or kid. He didn't have none. The great prophet Jeremiah, we all read Jeremiah, quote Jeremiah. Jeremiah did not have no wife nor kids. And these are great prophets and men that we're talking about. So we can't just look at, one great man and prophet and the forefathers and say, oh, like make like they all was into this, like they all had multiple wives back then. When I just stated, you had some brothers that didn't have no wife at all, like Jeremiah. And I also believe Daniel didn't have no wife. And Samuel, I believe he had one wife, if I'm not mistaken. There's another prophet that had one wife. And we know, of course, our King Messiah, he didn't have no, wife, but we know that we are his bride, but as far as just having a wife on paper contract he calls his wife now. But let's talk about Abraham for a second. Because yes, Abraham had multiple wives. But how? How did this take place there? Abraham just say, Sarah, I'm about to get another wife, and you gonna be on board with it? Is that how it went down? Or did Sarah come to Abraham and say, go into my handmaid. I'm gonna give her to you for my wife. Yeah, when that's how it went down. You read the Holy Scripture, it was Sarah's idea for him to marry their handmaid. Then, of course, afterwards she regretted, but nevertheless, it was her idea, and Abraham went along with it, and we got Isaac out of the deal. So it was his wife coming up with the idea. And then after Sarah died, he got married to another wife. And that's biblical that once your wife died, you're not committing adultery if you go out and get another wife. So Abraham, after Sarah told him to get with Hagar and he married her, Then of course, he divorced her when she told him to put him away. So he put her away. And he didn't have no other woman after Sarah until Sarah died. And then he got another wife. Brothers don't talk about that. They just want to point out he had multiple wives. But they don't show the humility and order in which it came about. Jacob, let's talk about it. Jacob, how did Jacob end up having 4 wives? Matter of fact, how did he end up having 2? Because his uh uncle, his uncle deceived him. He thought he was marrying only one wife. He thought he was marrying only one sister. He thought he was marrying Rachel. But because he was deceived, he got deceived into marrying 2 women. And then we know if you read the law, the Most High commanded that, but it was after this, but the Most High uh, commanded us that you don't marry 2 sisters, that you don't take the sister while the other sister is living. That's not how it goes. But nevertheless, more likely that law wasn't in place during that time. So Isaac got Rachel and Leah because he was tricked into having 2 wives. He was tricked into marrying Leah. And had to work again to marry Rachel. Excuse me. So that's how he got the 2 wives. So then how the other wives came to play? Well, the 2 sisters was that competition. Even though I'm sure they was happy and had a big family and loved each other, they had a little competition. Who do my man love more? And Leah seen that Jacob had more love for Rachel. So she was just popping out kids and saying, okay, because I'm having these kids, maybe his affection would be towards me more than my little sister. Instead of her being happy that Jacob loved her and that she was, carrying his children, she wanted his love. She wanted him to love her just as much or even more than he loved his sister. And then Rachel was like, my sister Leah popping out all these babies, and she getting jealous, still of being content with she had Jacob loved more than that Jacob loved her more than her sister. Instead of her being content with that, she was jealous of her sister because her sister was giving Jacob all these children. And she wasn't having children. So she said, you know what? Did Jacob say, you know what? I think I should go in your handmaid and have children for you? No. Rachel herself said, marry my handmaid, go into her and have children by her through me or for me. And then when Leah stopped having kids, she seen that Rachel had gave her handmaid to her husband to have kids through her. She said, you know what, since I ain't having kids no more, Jacob, she said, it wasn't his idea. She said, go into my handmaid. and have kids with her so you can have some more kids. And it would, you know, count on my end some type of way, I guess she felt because that was her handmaid. But eventually, Rachel ended up having two sons also. But you see, it was the women's idea. First, he got tricked into having two wives, and then the women, his own wives, gave him two other wives. So if you in a predicament like that, brother, well, you got a wife and maybe that's so well, a woman will come to you and say, hey, you know, I want a sister wife. But you know, if you want another wife, uh, I wouldn't be mad. I would entertain it. If you want to go out and get married again, you know, I wouldn't have a problem with that. If your wife come with you as that, then may the most I bless y'all. If you willing to do that, then y'all agreeing to do that, that's what's up. But then you got, even if your first wife, the wife you with, say, yeah, you know, you can have another wife if you want. Now you got to find a wife that's okay with being a second wife. She okay with coming into that. But nevertheless, it got to be spiritual led. See how all this was, you know what I'm saying? Like the woman's agreed with it. The woman's was down with it. The women's even pushed it. It was never the men's pushing it. And these, when you look back on our ancestors being married to multiple wives, it was never them going out looking for women's. It was their wife ideals and pushing them on. And that's not talked about enough. That's not looked at enough. That the men's was not just saying, I'm gonna get me uh well Abraham, no Jacob was just like, I want multiple wives. I'm gonna go out and get multiple wives. Most I said I can have multiple wives, so that's what I'm gonna do. No, it was their wife ideas. And I'm not here to argue about, you know, was it is it the best thing, you know, because there was, you know, jealousy and arguments and fussing. Because, you know, that goes on with a man and one wife. Sometimes they have drama and be jealousy and fussing back and forth. So, you know, if that happened with one wife, you know, with multiple wives, it's just gonna be multiplied. But you know, I'm not the one to demonize it and say, hey, you know, it didn't work with our ancestors. You seen all the drama went along with that. Because Adam and Eve, you know, he had one wife and look at all the drama she caused with him, you know, with just one. So, you know, but there's a balance. I believe there's a perfect balance. And it gotta be, you gotta be, we all must be spiritual led. And everything that happens, it happens without the Most High. And the Most High got to call it. And the Most High will allow, Most High give us free will. He'll allow for us to make bad decisions and bad choices. It ain't like he won't allow for you to have multiple wives if he's not pleased with it or and dang with it. Even if he's not pleased with it, he'll still allow for you to do it and cause yourself a whole bunch of drama and problems and stress and headache because that's what type of loving father he is. He gave us free will. But I believe it's really in his design for us to have multiple wives, for a man to have it, it'll fall in place smooth. He ain't got to force nothing. So somebody else I want to talk about, who was that? We talked about Abraham, talked about Isaac, talked about Jacob, ya- Jacob, Jacob. Uh, Talked about David and Samson a little bit. But yeah, that's usually who they bring up when they like to, these men's when they like to say, the patriarchs had multiple wives. You know, these men's usually who they like to bring up. Well, if we're gonna bring them up, let's bring up the circumstances of why they had multiple wives and really look at this thing for what it is and examine it and see, even though David had multiple wives, he still committed adultery. And let's talk about Samson a little bit more. What was the reason he fell? What was the reason that he stopped being righteous, even though he was the wisest man? It says because he took multiple women. Not only he had multiple women, but he had multiple women uh, from the nations that the Most High told us not to do so. So he didn't just have him a whole bunch of daughters of Zion. He had a couple of Indians and probably Chinese and Japanese and Caucasians and every other woman. And they turned his heart away from the Most High because he had multiple women of different nationalities. His heart was turned away from the Most High. Brothers don't talk about that when they talk about multiple women. They don't like to highlight that. I think I'm gonna say that one more time because that's a good thing to meditate on. Solomon, the wisest man, the most richest, wisest man in the scripture, fell out of favor and turned his back on the Most High, not because of money, not because a homeboy, not because of pride, but because having multiple women from multiple nations, that was his downfall. I mean, he could have just had multiple women from the daughter of Zion, but he even went out and got other women from other nations, and that was his downfall. So to sum this up, family, when we talk about the patriarchs and our forefathers and having multiple wives, as we see like Isaac, it wasn't something that every last one of our ancestors done, or the patriarchs. Every patriarch did not have multiple wives. Many other prophets had no wives. So let's not let people pull the wool over our eyes, or when we look at this thing of polygamy and they say, our forefathers done it. Let's not bunch it all up as this was something that all our forefathers did, and it was just something that everybody needed to do, and it was common. And that, because even the man what the Bathsheba that David took from uh her husband after he had her killed. She had what her husband had just her. He was just married to Bathsheba. But nevertheless, hope this brought a little bit light on the come up. This hope it brought a little bit of understanding and enlightenment to both the men's and the women's when it comes to our forefathers having multiple wives. And we can see the humility and the willingness of the women, and you know, this is why it took place. It wasn't nothing forced. It wasn't nothing that was the means was necessary. Just going out and trying to participate in. It came to them, and it was the way about a women, or in the case of Jacob being tricked. Till next time. Oh, by the way, enjoy the rest of y'all even day. Remember, y'all is y'all is in control. Every day is a day that He created. So I want y'all to go through this day and every day, knowing that the Most High is in control and that it's already written. We just gotta be obedient. Don't let nothing stress you out today. Know that nothing can defeat you. And if it's your time, it's your time. So don't even worry about death or if anybody dying around you or sick around you. Don't stress. No need to stress about anything. That one of the biggest things we do that do ourselves a disservice, and it shows the lack of faith, is when we be fearful and stressful about life, as if like the Most High is not in control and don't love us. We're gonna go through some things, but we must handle those things in a better way without being so stressful and mad and taking it out on people and oh what I'm gonna do. Because when you look back, ain't every time when we do that, every time when you look back at every situation that we done had in life, well, it just seemed like we was backed up in the corner. We didn't know what we was gonna do. We didn't know how we was gonna pay this bill. We didn't know where we was gonna live. We didn't all those every time those situations happen, didn't it always work out? So on the high side, why were we so stressful? Why did we do ourselves a disservice and stress ourselves out worrying? Where it worked out every time. What we should learn from that. And when we go through these moments where it seems like trouble and moments where we should be depressed or we should be fearful, in those moments, rejoice. Thank the Most High because we know He already gonna work it out. In those times, rejoice and pray to the Father and be happy regardless because you know He gonna work it out. You know He's in control and all things work out good for those who love Him. So if you being obedient and you keeping the commandments, even if you slip up and you know we got the blood of Christ, then you should rejoice because all things are going to work out for our good. And He hear the prayers of those that obey Him. So we good, family. We just gotta stop fearing and stressing and letting our emotion get the best of us. That's the biggest thing. We can govern our emotions. Let let that let that spirit take command of our mind. Still letting the carnal mind run rampant. They'll cut out about 75% of the stress and the happiness we have in life. But till next time. Be Barack. Shalom.